The sky above planet Cypher was a deep shade of violet, filled with swirling clouds that glowed softly in the fading sunlight. Ethan Carter adjusted his oxygen mask and stepped carefully through the dense alien forest. Giant trees with silver leaves loomed over him, their twisted roots stretching across the ground like frozen serpents. He had been on this planet for 3 days, searching for rare minerals to trade back on Earth. So far, he had found nothing. Ethan sighed and checked his scanner. A weak signal flickered on the screen, showing movement nearby. His heart pounded. Was it a wild creature? Another explorer? He tightened his grip on his laser knife and moved forward, his boots crunching softly against the purple moss beneath him. Then he saw her. A figure lay on the ground near a glowing blue pond, barely moving. At first, Ethan thought it was just another alien animal. But as he stepped closer, he froze in shock. It was a girl. Her body was unlike anything he had ever seen. She had silver skin that shimmered under the alien moonlight, and long, dark blue hair spread across the moss like a river of ink. Her delicate features were framed by faint, glowing lines running down her cheeks, like veins filled with light. She wore a strange, torn outfit made of thin metallic fabric, and her breathing was shallow. Ethan hesitated. Was she dangerous? An enemy? He kneeled beside her and carefully touched her wrist. Her skin was cold. Too cold. She's dying, he muttered to himself. Looking around, he saw no one else. No footprints, no signs of a camp. Nothing. She was alone. Ethan reached into his survival pack and pulled out a small energy bar. It wasn't much, but it had saved his life more than once. Maybe it could help her. "Hey," he said softly, unsure if she even understood him. "Can you hear me? You need to eat something." The girl's eyelids fluttered. Slowly, she opened her eyes, and Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Her pupils were slitted like a cat's, and they glowed with an eerie blue light. For a moment, she just stared at him, her gaze sharp and unblinking. Then suddenly, she gasped and pushed herself back, her body trembling. "It's okay," Ethan said, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I'm not here to hurt you." She blinked at him, her eyes darting between his face and the energy bar in his hand. Slowly, cautiously, she reached out and sniffed the food, her expression twisting in confusion. Ethan frowned. Did she not know what food was? Then, to his surprise, she opened her mouth, but instead of biting, she placed the food on her tongue and let it dissolve like dust. The moment she swallowed, her entire body shuddered violently. A soft blue glow erupted from her skin, spreading outwards like ripples in water. Ethan stumbled back in shock. "What the?" The girl gasped, gripping her chest as if something inside her had just awakened. Her breathing turned heavy, and a strange hum filled the air, growing louder by the second. Ethan felt his skin tingle, like static electricity running over his arms. The ground beneath them trembled. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to run, but his body refused to move. His gaze locked onto the girl, who was staring at her own hands in horror. The glowing lines on her body were now pulsing with energy, flickering like a heartbeat. Then she looked up at him. Her lips parted, and she whispered something in a language he didn't understand. The next second, a deep, booming voice filled the sky, echoing through the forest. "The bond has been sealed." Ethan's blood turned cold. The girl's glowing eyes widened, her expression shifting from confusion to pure terror. "No, no, this can't be," she whispered, shaking her head. Ethan stepped back, his mind racing. What had he just done? Before he could speak, a distant roar shook the air, sending flocks of strange birds screeching into the sky. The girl's body tensed. "They're coming," she breathed. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. "Who's coming?" he demanded. But before she could answer, the trees in front of them burst apart, and a dark, shadowy figure emerged. And then everything went silent. Ethan's breath was shallow as he stared at the massive shadow emerging from the trees. The forest had gone deathly silent, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. The girl beside him was frozen in place, her glowing eyes wide with fear. The shadow took form, a towering figure, its body sleek and metallic, reflecting the soft alien light. It had no face, only a smooth, polished mask where its features should have been. Strange, intricate symbols glowed faintly along its chest, pulsing in a slow rhythm. Ethan had seen many alien species during his travels, but this one was unlike anything he had ever encountered. Then it spoke. "You have violated the sacred bond," the creature said in a deep mechanical voice. Ethan took a step back, his grip tightening around his laser knife. "I don't know what you're talking about." The girl, still trembling, turned to Ethan. You gave me your food," she whispered. Ethan frowned. "Yeah, so." She swallowed hard, her silver skin flickering with blue light. "On my planet, sharing food is not just an act of kindness. It is a binding ritual." Ethan's stomach dropped. "What?" The towering figure stepped closer, its movements unnervingly smooth. "You have entered a life bond with one of our kind," it said. "And now you must face the consequences." Ethan's mind was racing. Life bond. Consequences. This was supposed to be a simple exploration mission, not some ancient alien tradition he had no idea about. The girl's hands clenched into fists. "He didn't know," she said firmly. The figure's glowing symbols pulsed brighter. "Ignorance is no excuse. The bond has been sealed." Ethan's instincts screamed at him to run, but he forced himself to stay still. "Okay," he said slowly, keeping his voice steady. "Let's say this bond is real. What does that mean for me?" The girl's expression darkened. "It means," she hesitated, glancing at the creature, "you are bound to me for life." Ethan's chest tightened. "Like married?" The girl flinched at the word but gave a slow nod. Ethan blinked. "You've got to be kidding me." The figure let out a low hum, like the sound of metal grinding against itself. "She is now under your protection, and you under hers. Should either of you abandon this bond, the punishment is death." Ethan's pulse quickened. "Oh, fantastic. Death. Of course." The girl turned toward the towering entity. "I don't accept this," she said firmly. "I never agreed." The figure's glowing chest dimmed slightly. "You do not have a choice." Ethan exhaled sharply. "Great. So we're just stuck together." The girl looked at him, a mix of frustration and fear in her expression. "For as long as we live." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, trying to process everything. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. He was a simple explorer, not some cosmic groom in an intergalactic arranged marriage. The figure took another step forward. "You must leave this planet immediately. Others will come for you soon. They will not be as merciful as I am." Ethan frowned. "Wait, who's coming?" The girl stiffened. "My people." Ethan's stomach twisted. This was getting worse by the second. The figure tilted its head slightly. "They will not allow this bond to exist. If they find you, they will destroy you both." Ethan exchanged a glance with the girl. So not only was he stuck with an alien he just met, but now an entire species wanted them dead. Perfect. "All right." He sighed. "What do we do?" The girl hesitated. Then she grabbed his wrist. Her grip was cold, but strong. "We run." Before Ethan could protest, the air around them crackled, a deep, low rumbling vibrating through the trees. The sky above them darkened as strange. Floating ships appeared, hovering in the distance. The girl's eyes widened. "They're here." The towering figure stepped back, disappearing into the shadows. "You have little time." Ethan tightened his backpack straps, adrenaline surging through his veins. "Lead the way." Without another word, the girl turned and sprinted into the forest. Ethan didn't hesitate. He ran after her, his heart pounding. Behind them, the distant ships began their descent, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. The chase had begun. Ethan's lungs burned as he sprinted through the dense alien forest, branches whipping past him, the ground trembling beneath his feet. The girl, his so-called bonded partner, moved effortlessly ahead, her silver skin flickering with bursts of blue light. Behind them, the alien ships loomed closer, their engines humming with an eerie resonance. Ethan stole a glance over his shoulder and saw the sky painted with glowing orbs, scouting drones scanning the terrain. "We can't outrun them forever," he shouted. The girl skidded to a stop near the edge of a ravine, her breath shallow. "We don't need to." Ethan nearly crashed into her. "What?" She raised her hand. A faint ripple shimmered in the air, a distortion, like a glitch in reality itself. Before he could react, she grabbed his arm and pulled him forward. The world around him shifted. 1 second, they were in the open, exposed to the incoming enemy forces. The next, they were somewhere else. The air was thick with a strange, electric charge. The sky above was darker, the stars distorted. The trees here were taller, their bark black as onyx, glowing veins of blue energy pulsating across them. The ground itself felt softer beneath Ethan's boots, almost like stepping onto a sponge. "What the hell just happened?" he breathed. The girl released his arm, her glowing eyes scanning the area. "A phase pocket," she murmured. "A fracture between dimensions. My people can't track us here, not immediately." Ethan exhaled sharply. "A what now?" She looked at him, her expression a mix of exhaustion and fear. "It doesn't matter. We don't have long." Ethan ran a hand through his sweat-drenched hair. "Fantastic. So what's the plan?" "Because right now, I'm still processing the fact that I'm accidentally married to an alien, being hunted by an entire species, and apparently hiding in some kind of reality glitch." The girl didn't respond immediately. Instead, she crouched down, drawing strange symbols into the dirt with her finger. The symbols glowed faintly before fading into the ground. Ethan frowned. "What are you doing?" "Sealing the fracture," she replied, "to buy us time." A deep hum vibrated through the air, and the shimmering edges of the phase pocket solidified slightly, the distorted trees growing more defined. Ethan exhaled. "Okay, so since I'm now bound to you for life, and apparently about to be vaporized by your people, maybe you could tell me your name." The girl hesitated. Then she met his gaze. "Cythery." "Cythery," Ethan repeated. "Right. Cool name. Now, Cythery, mind telling me why your people want to kill us?" She lowered her gaze. "Because you broke the sacred law. You formed a bond with an outworlder." Ethan scoffed. "I gave you food. That's hardly a crime." "Not on your world," she muttered. "On mine, it is the most binding act one can perform." Ethan folded his arms. "And no one thought to mention that." Cythery's expression darkened. "I didn't think a human would be foolish enough to offer food to a stranger in the wild." Ethan threw his hands up. "I was being nice. You looked half dead." She let out a breath, her shoulders tense. "It doesn't matter now. My people won't stop until they erase this bond, by erasing you." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "Great. Love that. So, what do we do?" Cythery's glowing eyes studied him carefully. "There might be a way out." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "I don't like how you said might." Cythery stood up, her silver skin shimmering in the dim light. "The only way to sever the bond without death is to stand before the High Tribunal and have them nullify it." Ethan frowned. "And where exactly is this tribunal?" Cythery hesitated. "In the heart of the Celestial Citadel, the most heavily guarded place on my planet." Ethan groaned. "Of course it is." A sudden crack echoed through the air. The ground beneath them vibrated as something breached the pocket's edge. Cythery's head snapped toward the sound. "They found us." Ethan turned just in time to see shadows moving beyond the phase pocket's border. Shapes with elongated limbs and piercing, golden eyes. "They sent the sentinels," Cythery whispered. Ethan reached for his weapon. And those are the ones who don't miss. His grip tightened. Yeah, definitely time to leave. Cytheri raised her hands, the symbols on her arms glowing brighter. Hold on to me. Ethan hesitated for half a second, then grabbed her wrist. The moment his skin touched hers, the world collapsed around them. Light twisted, space itself ripped apart, and before he could even scream, they were somewhere else. Ethan hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the wind from his lungs. His vision swam as he struggled to sit up, his ears ringing from the violent shift in space. Beside him, Cytheri was already on her feet, her glowing eyes scanning their surroundings. They had landed in what looked like an abandoned structure, the walls covered in strange, bioluminescent patterns that pulsed faintly. The air was thick with humidity, and a deep mechanical hum reverberated through the walls. Ethan groaned. Please tell me we're somewhere safe. Cytheri didn't answer immediately. She stepped forward, running her fingers over the glowing symbols on the walls. They reacted to her touch, shifting and rearranging, forming new patterns that Ethan couldn't begin to comprehend. Finally, she spoke. We are inside an ancient relay station. It predates even my ancestors. Ethan pushed himself to his feet, rubbing the back of his head. So, safe-ish. Cytheri turned to face him, her expression unreadable. For now, the Sentinels won't be able to track us here. Not yet. This place exists between worlds, much like the phase pocket. Ethan exhaled, relief flooding through him. Okay, great. Now maybe we can finally talk about what the hell we're supposed to do next. Cytheri hesitated before nodding. We need to reach the Celestial Citadel before the Tribunal orders your execution. Ethan let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, because sneaking into the most heavily guarded place on your planet sounds super easy. Cytheri stepped closer, lowering her voice. There may be another way. Ethan narrowed his eyes. I'm listening. She glanced around the room before placing her palm against the wall again. The symbols rearranged once more, and suddenly, a hidden doorway slid open with a soft hiss. A narrow tunnel stretched beyond, shrouded in flickering blue light. Cytheri gestured toward it. The Veil Passage. Ethan stared at her. And that is a forgotten pathway that runs beneath the Celestial Citadel, she explained. Few even know it exists. If we can navigate it, we may reach the Tribunal undetected. Ethan folded his arms. And what's the catch? Cytheri hesitated. The passage is unstable. It was sealed long ago because travelers who entered it were never seen again. Ethan groaned. Of course. Why wouldn't it be a death tunnel? Cytheri's expression remained firm. If we do not take this risk, the Sentinels will find us long before we reach the Citadel. And then you will die. Ethan exhaled sharply. Fine. Death tunnel it is. Cytheri nodded and stepped inside. Ethan followed, the walls seeming to shudder as they entered. The air grew thick, and the further they walked, the darker it became. The flickering blue light cast eerie shadows along the walls, making it feel like something was moving just out of sight. Ethan clenched his fists. I don't suppose you know what happened to the people who got lost in here. Cytheri didn't answer. A chill ran down Ethan's spine. That's comforting. They pressed forward, their footsteps echoing strangely in the narrow corridor. The air smelled metallic, like old machinery and damp stone. Suddenly, a faint whispering sound filled the passage. It was distant at first, like the wind through a hollow cave. But as they moved deeper, it grew clearer. Ethan slowed his steps. Tell me you hear that. Cytheri stiffened. Do not listen to it. Ethan shot her a look. Not listening is kind of hard when it's whispering right in my ears. Cytheri quickened her pace. The Veil Passage is connected to fragments of time. Those who entered before, their echoes remain. Ethan swallowed hard. Right. Creepy ghost whispers. No problem. The whispering grew louder, the voices overlapping, some speaking in Cytheri's language, others in something else entirely. The tunnel walls seemed to shift as they walked, warping and stretching, like reality itself was unraveling. Then, Ethan heard something that made his blood run cold. A voice. His own voice. "Ethan Carter, you should not be here." He froze. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. The voice had come from up ahead. But he was standing right here. Cytherea turned sharply, grabbing his wrist. "Do not stop. Keep moving." Ethan swallowed and forced himself to follow, but the whispering only intensified. He caught snippets of conversation, fragments of his own future. "They will betray you. She's lying to you. You won't make it out alive." Ethan clenched his teeth. This tunnel really knows how to make a guy feel welcome. Cytherea didn't respond, but he could see the tension in her posture. The further they walked, the more the tunnel resisted their presence. The walls vibrated, cracks forming along the surface, dark mist leaking through. Ethan had the sickening feeling that if he touched that mist, he wouldn't exist anymore. Then, just when he thought the tunnel might collapse completely, he saw it. A door. It was massive, covered in the same bioluminescent symbols as the walls. But unlike the others, these symbols were moving, shifting in real time, forming patterns that made Ethan's head ache just looking at them. Cytherea exhaled. "We made it." Ethan wiped sweat from his brow. "Awesome. Now how do we open it?" Cytherea stepped forward, raising her hands. The markings on her arms flared to life, glowing with intense light. She pressed her palms to the door, and the entire structure shuddered. The whispering voices screamed. A deep boom echoed through the tunnel. The mist lunged forward, tendrils reaching for them. The door burst open. Blinding light flooded the tunnel, and before Ethan could react, he was pulled inside. The last thing he heard before the world around him disappeared was the sound of his own voice, whispering one last chilling phrase. "You were never supposed to leave." Ethan crashed onto a smooth, cold surface, his mind spinning from the sudden shift in reality. His breathing was heavy, his heart pounding against his ribs. The overwhelming brightness faded, and as his vision adjusted, he found himself standing in a vast chamber, unlike anything he had ever seen. The architecture was impossibly alien. The walls stretched endlessly, curving at impossible angles, pulsing with streaks of golden light. Symbols floated midair, shifting and rearranging as if the space itself was alive. Cytherea stood beside him, her glowing eyes scanning the room with careful intensity. "This is the sanctuary of the forgotten. We are on the edge of the tribunal's domain." Ethan exhaled sharply, shaking his head. Right, because walking through a reality-breaking tunnel wasn't bad enough. Cytherea ignored his sarcasm. Instead, she took a cautious step forward, her expression unreadable. "This place is hidden from the sentinels, but not for long. We must move." Ethan followed her, his boots clicking softly against the smooth floor. The air carried a strange hum, like thousands of voices speaking just beyond the edge of his hearing. It sent chills down his spine. Then, something moved. A figure emerged from the shifting symbols ahead. It was not human. It stood at least 7 feet tall, its form encased in layers of flowing energy that resembled armor yet shifted like liquid. Its face was obscured behind a smooth, reflective mask, and when it spoke, its voice reverberated in Ethan's mind, bypassing his ears completely. "You carry the bond." Ethan stiffened, instinctively glancing at Cytherea, but she did not react in fear. Instead, she inclined her head respectfully. "We seek passage through the tribunal's veil." The figure's mask pulsed with golden light. The bond was given without consent. The trial must be held. Ethan clenched his jaw. "What does that mean?" Cytherea finally turned to him, her voice lower, urgent. "The tribunal does not recognize accidental bonds. To them, you either gave it willingly, or you stole something sacred." Ethan felt a sharp knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. "You mean, they think I did this on purpose? The figure lifted an elongated hand, and in an instant, the room shifted. The walls melted away, dissolving into endless space. Stars swirled around them. And suddenly, Ethan was floating, not in zero gravity, but in something deeper, something beyond the normal rules of physics. Then, more figures appeared. A circle of tribunal elders. They were like the first figure, tall, shimmering beings wrapped in light and energy, their forms shifting like liquid flames. They surrounded him and Cytherea, their presence radiating overwhelming power. "Human, you have taken what was not yours." The words echoed in Ethan's skull, vibrating through his entire body. He had no idea how they communicated directly into his mind, but it was terrifying. Cytherea took a step forward. The bond was unintentional. The human did not know our laws. One of the elders turned its head slightly, the golden glow around it flaring. Ignorance is no defense. He must be tested. If he fails, he will be unmade. Ethan stiffened. Unmade. Cytherea's voice was grim. They mean erased. Not just from here. From existence. A sharp, cold fear ran down Ethan's spine. He had been through a lot in the past few hours. Escaping sentinels, running through death tunnels, hearing his own future whisper to him. But this was something else. The tribunal elder raised a glowing hand, and suddenly, Ethan's body locked in place. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. The trial begins. The world shifted again. Ethan's consciousness fractured. His mind ripped from reality as he was thrown into the unknown. Ethan gasped as he fell through nothingness, his body weightless, his mind struggling to comprehend the endless void around him. Stars whirled past, twisting in unnatural patterns, and the very fabric of space seemed to pull at his soul. Then, impact. He crashed onto a hard metallic surface, rolling onto his back with a groan. The air smelled strange, thick with an unfamiliar metallic scent. A heavy silence surrounded him, pressing down like an invisible weight. Slowly, he pushed himself up, his vision swimming. He was no longer in the tribunal's chamber. Instead, he stood on what looked like a battlefield. Towering alien structures loomed in the distance, their jagged spires crackling with blue energy. The ground beneath him was scorched, marked with deep scars of destruction. The sky above was a swirling storm of purples and reds, lightning flashing across the darkness. And then the screaming began. Ethan spun around just as a group of humanoid warriors, armored, their faces obscured by sleek helmets, charged toward an unseen enemy. Their weapons glowed with plasma energy, their movements unnaturally fast. Cytherea's voice suddenly echoed in his mind. "This is the trial. Survive." Ethan barely had time to react before a monstrous shadow loomed over him. A creature, massive, armored in obsidian black plating, with 4 glowing eyes and razor-sharp limbs, descended from the stormy sky, screeching with an inhuman roar. His instincts screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. The beast lunged. Ethan dove aside, barely avoiding a swipe that sent debris flying. His heart pounded, his breath ragged. He had no weapon, no armor, nothing to defend himself. But then, Cytherea appeared. She moved like lightning, her form a blur as she leaped onto the creature's back, her energy blade igniting with a brilliant blue light. With a single precise strike, she severed one of its limbs. The creature howled in agony, thrashing wildly. Ethan scrambled to his feet, his mind racing. If this was a test, then he couldn't just sit back and let Cytherea fight alone. He had to prove himself. His eyes darted to a fallen warrior nearby, their weapons still clutched in their lifeless hands. He hesitated for only a moment before ripping it free. The weapon pulsed to life in his grip, its alien interface adjusting to his touch. No time to question it. The creature whipped around just as Ethan raised the weapon. He squeezed the trigger. A blast of pure energy erupted forward, striking the beast in its exposed wound. The force sent it reeling, its remaining limbs scrambling for footing. Cytheri took the opening. With a final, lethal strike, she drove her blade into the creature's skull. The battlefield fell silent. Ethan stood frozen, his breathing ragged, his hands trembling around the alien weapon. His heart was still racing, the adrenaline refusing to settle. Cytheri turned to him, her expression unreadable. "You didn't hesitate." Ethan swallowed hard. "Did I have a choice?" Her glowing eyes studied him for a moment before she nodded. "You're learning." Before he could respond, the world shifted again. The battlefield, the storm, the dead warriors, all of it melted away. Ethan found himself back in the tribunal's chamber. The towering, luminous figures of the elders stood before him, their forms pulsing with energy. The human has faced the trial. A tense silence filled the chamber. Ethan's fists clenched at his sides, his body still trembling from the fight. Then the lead elder spoke. "The bond remains." Ethan's breath caught. His fate is now bound to the guardian. The tribunal has spoken. Cytheri exhaled softly, her shoulders easing. Ethan, however, felt a new kind of weight settle over him. He wasn't sure what had just happened, or what it truly meant. But one thing was clear. His life would never be the same again. Ethan stood frozen, his mind racing as the tribunal's words echoed in the vast chamber. The bond remains. His fate is now bound to the guardian. His fate, sealed. He turned his gaze towards Cytheri. The alien warrior stood motionless beside him, her piercing eyes unreadable. She was no longer just some enigmatic being who had fallen into his life. She was his responsibility. And now, it seemed, he was hers. The realization sent a cold chill down his spine. Before he could process it, the floor beneath them shifted. The tribunal chamber dissolved like mist, giving way to a completely different reality. Ethan blinked. They were no longer in the temple. They were somewhere else. An enormous cityscape stretched before them, shimmering with towering structures made of crystalline metal. The sky was a deep violet, filled with floating platforms and glowing orbs that pulsed like miniature suns. The air hummed with energy, an invisible force pressing against his skin. Cytheri inhaled sharply. "We are in the core, the heart of my people's empire." Ethan turned to her. "And why did they bring us here?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. A presence emerged from the shimmering light ahead. A figure cloaked in flowing robes, their body radiating pure energy. Unlike the tribunal, this being was not just a voice of authority. It was power itself. "The bond is now complete," the figure intoned, its voice resonating in the very air. Ethan swallowed. "And what exactly does that mean?" The entity extended a hand, and suddenly, Ethan's mind exploded with visions. A war. A cataclysmic war. Worlds crumbling, civilizations falling, entire galaxies on the brink of destruction. At the center of it all, him. His heart pounded in his chest. He saw himself standing beside Cytheri, locked in a battle against forces that defied all logic, creatures of pure void, entities that devoured light and life itself. "You are now part of our fate, human. The Guardian's destiny is tied to yours, and so is our survival." Ethan staggered back. "What the hell does that mean? I'm just a guy I didn't sign up for." Cytheri's hand gripped his wrist, stopping him. "You are no longer just a man," she whispered. "You are chosen." The energy being continued. "The tribunal did not simply test you. They have rewritten your existence. You have been marked." Ethan looked down at his arms and froze. A strange, glowing sigil now pulsed beneath his skin, weaving itself like a living pattern across his body. He could feel it. Energy thrumming through his veins, something beyond human comprehension now residing within him. His breath came fast. His mind screamed at him to reject it. But something deep inside him knew. There was no going back. The vision faded, and he was back in reality, his body trembling. Cytheri stood silently beside him, watching. "You see now," she murmured. You are more than what you were. Ethan clenched his fists. I didn't ask for this. No, she said softly. Neither did I. Their eyes met. For the first time, Ethan saw the weight she carried. The burden of a warrior sworn to protect an entire race. And now he carried it too. A distant sound rumbled in the sky, like thunder, but alive. Ethan turned just in time to see the first wave of darkness descend. It had begun.